Hi, welcome to the Swatch On, Swatch Off podcast, the podcast that's all about learning more about knitting and crochet every day and becoming excellent at what you do and growing as a knitter or a crocheter or both. So, what am I swatching? Well, this actually isn't a swatch. It's a work in progress or a whip, so I will talk about that later. But I have been swatching a couple other things. So one thing that I'm swatching is some Tunisian crochet. And I'm trying to figure it out for a little bit of surface embroidery. It does really cool cross stitch, but in this case I'm doing some little flowers. And I guess it could be a hat, but I mean I was just making a square, so it kind of turned out to be a basket. And the edges of this are not Tunisian. This is kind of a linen stitch done in crochet, but it also really lends itself to a little bit of embroidery. So just figuring out a design with this swatch. What else am I swatching? Oh yeah, for the blog that I write for every once in a while, knitmuch.ca or .com, I've been swatching with some sock yarn by can't remember who it's by. Oh yeah, Wisdom Yarns is the manufacturer, and the name of the sock yarn is Prose. So here you can see I love these colors. Teal is my favorite color, and I know this is really more of a marine blue and a turquoise and not quite dark enough for teal, but anyway, it's in the same family. So what I've been swatching for the knitmuch.com blog is called dropped stitch lace. I'm trying to think, I should have planned this better to have a background that's white so you can kind of see what the stitch looks like. So here, how about if I just use a piece of paper? There, you can see what drop stitch lace looks like. If I get a little closer, I hope it focuses. Yeah, I think pretty good. So I was having some fun with decreases and increases. Anyway, there's a lot more of that over on the blog. If you go to knitmuch.com, this week of the last week of April, of April 2017, you'll find some instructions on how to do it. And I know this is just a swatch, but you know, if I had made it long enough, used the whole skein of yarn, I probably would have a pretty decent scarf. Okay, so that's the other thing I've been swatching. And oh yeah, double knitting. So I don't know if you've watched the Sockmatician podcast, but the Sockmatician does a lot of double knitting, some really cool stuff, and I wanted to get much better at it. So I've been following some of his tutorials, but I also am taking a class by double knitting guru, Alasdair Postquin, and he teaches a class on Craftsy. So here I am, just at the moment it's just random color changes. So there you can see the light color side with a little blops of brown, and the opposite on the other side. And I chose the wrong yarn for sure for this swatch, because this is an alpaca tweed, and it's very furry. As you can see, it has lots of bloom, and the needles that I have, way too long of a cable, so I just grabbed what I had. Needles were a little bit too thick. Oh, somebody's coming into the room, might need me, so I'm just going to pause this and come back in a minute. All right, well, that was nothing important. Anyway, so wrong yarn, but it's a great technique. I'm really enjoying it. and I'm not sure where it's going to take me, but this journey of double knitting is definitely very addicting. Anyway, if you'd like to look on craftsy.com at Alistair's preview of the class, I'll put a link in the show notes. As a fellow Craftsy instructor, I can get discount codes for you guys. So if anybody would like to take Alistair's class, please go to the show notes on the Facebook page, and there'll be a link there. Those links do expire, so if you're watching this way past April of 2017, then just private message me and I'll see what I can do, if I can still set up a discount code or not. Anyway, it's worth a try. So Alistair has designed this scarf that is the 52 face cards, poker cards, and the one side of the scarf is like the back of the cards, and the other side of the scarf is the face cards and the numbers and the 4 suits. And anyway, and he knit that double knitting in the double knitting technique. So as he went, he created both sides in stockinette stitch. I don't know if I'll ever make that card scarf, but I do want to do something complicated like that someday. But I'm going to start with easy first. All right, so that's what I've been swatching. Next, what's on my needles and hooks? Well, I don't really have a knitting project on the go at the moment. I just finished, oh, that's wrong. I don't have it here, but I am knitting a sock. Instead of using this colorway, this one's called menswear. There's another colorway by Prose in the Prose sock yarn line called Foxy. And if you go to the knitmuch.com blog again, you can see the socks that I've been knitting cuff down out of the Foxy colorway. I really, really like it. Sorry, don't have it here with me to show you. So that's what's on my needles. Crocheting, I'm working on this, but I don't want to open it all up and show you what it is because it's still a bit of a secret. So it's going to be a shrug, or kind of more bolero, a cross between a bolero and a shrug, for a wedding. Not for the bride, but for a wedding guest to wear on a cool summer night, or late summer probably. Anyway, it's out of a beautiful off-white mercerized cotton yarn, and there'll be more on that later. The other thing, I think I showed you some swatches, or a swatch I was working on. I haven't gotten very far, but I am crocheting a Downton Abbey-esque style dress, which is more, I guess, flappers style. And these are going to be the straps. So imagine a woman with a very sexy neckline and beautiful clavicles and everything, and beautiful graceful neck, wearing this. Now, this yarn was given to me by the yarn company, so I had no choice about the colors. And it's not, the whole dress isn't in this color, but the muted, earthy, tones of the 1920s are definitely part of the characteristic of this yarn. So that's a little funny. But anyway, and do you see my shirt? I don't know if it's backwards or not for you guys, but anyway, I guess somebody's done a little bit of history about the first men's knitting guilds around 1920 AD. And so that's when it was established that men knit, at least according to the history books. So I think that's pretty cool. I bought this t-shirt to help a GoFundMe account that was raising money for a scholarship for somebody to attend one of the men's knitting retreats in the continental US. I can't remember if this was South, Midwest, East, Northwest, or who the scholarship which retreat the scholarship is going to go for. But anyway, some guy, lucky guy who couldn't afford to go otherwise, is going to be able to go to the retreat. Someday I'd like to go. That never works out that any of the dates are open to me because of my college teaching schedule, and I can't really leave my students for 3 or 4 days to go on a knitting retreat as much as I'd like to sometimes. Not leave my students, but go on knitting retreat. So anyway, I thought it was a cool t-shirt, so I needed to have something from the retreat, or at least connected to that retreat. Okay, what is Pam knitting? I can't believe it. I left her stuff in the other room. I'm going to pause the camera again and go and get it. I'll be right back. Okay, so I am back with Pam's project. I don't know if I told you that she had knit a complete sweater I designed out of this yarn, and I goofed up on the design. It fit her, but she didn't really like the style, and it kind of was different than what she had at first asked for. It goes to show that I needed to consult with my client as I was working on the sketch and at the swatch level. Anyway, so that was a fiasco. All my fault. So we frogged the sweater, and she found one in a Sublime pattern book. This isn't Sublime yarn, and actually we've modified the pattern. So if you can see, this is one of the front or back panels, and this sweater is going to be from side to side. The original sweater had bubbles. I had to modify the cable as well because it had kind of like branches with bobbles at the end of it. And she tried about 20 rows with the bobbles and didn't mind knitting bobbles, but hated the look of them. So frogged that, and now I made a kind of a new cable, similar to what was already established. I didn't want her to have to frog right back to the beginning, so kind of took it back to about here, and then she's been going across. So she'll make a front panel and a back panel alike, and then we'll sew together the shoulders and the sides. And it's a vest, because then you just make a little armband, I guess, around the opening for each sleeve, and at the bottom there'll be a good 6-inch ribbing band here, kind of for waistband or cummerbund style band. Anyway, so this yarn is from New Zealand. A friend of ours traveled there. I don't remember the brand name, and she brought us 3 balls of double knitting and 2 balls of worsted. So not enough to use the colors separately for any garment. So we wound them together, and so that gives a nice bulky weight, a little bit more than chunky, and they kind of look really good together, the 2 colors. So it gives it a little bit of that marled tweedy look, but it's perfect for making the cables stand out. So that's one of the things Pam's knitting. And the other thing is a sock. And voila. So this sock yarn is very cool. It comes in this format. I don't remember. Lang, L-A-N-G, I think is the company that makes it. And this yellow is just kind of a guiding piece of yarn. You actually don't knit it into the sock. But so just at the end of the yellow was the beginning of this beautiful teal colored yarn. And so you start knitting the cuff in that color. That's right after the yellow lead yarn. And then it automatically does all these striped transitions. And then it goes to the main solid color that's going to be the bottom of the foot. And you just go until you finish the toe. Then there'll be a little bit more of this gray left over, and then another yellow lead. and then you start the sock all over again up at the cuff, and basically it makes for twin striped socks with no thinking involved. So anyway, so she did this nice peacock stitch heel flap, and I modified it a little bit. These are for me, and I have a pretty high instep, so I modified a little bit. There's more stitches on the instep than half that would normally be there for a heel flap type sock. Anyway, so yeah, that's what Pam's been knitting. So what's next? Oh, swatches from the archives. So I just thought I would go back to some of my old swatches. Some of you might have yarn stashes. Well, I have a swatch stash. And I keep my swatches, not all of them, but a lot of them for inspiration, kind of as a reference point to see what I want to do better or improve or change, and sometimes just as a scrapbook to remember what yarn I've used, stuff like that. I don't have a really good system of labeling and all that, though. One of my goals. Okay, so this is a crocheted swatch, and it's a spiral crochet technique to make these nice diamonds, and then they are actually crocheted together. They're not sewn together. And this swatch became the design for an Afghan full of diamonds, and I'll link to it in the show notes. It's in my Ravelry design page, but anyway, it's I sold the design to Willow Yarns, so if you want the pattern, you basically have to get it from them. No more proceeds to me, but that's how it goes when you sell a design to a yarn company. You usually sell all rights. It depends on the yarn company, but often that's the case. And anyway, I'm okay with that overall. For those of you who are crocheters, it's not difficult, but it's not easy either. I would say it's somewhere in between beginner and intermediate. You need to be comfortable with double treble stitches, because you have some long post stitches here at the tips of the diamonds. And you have to be very comfortable with reading your stitches so that you can count and keep track of them all, so that the diamond shape does indeed happen. Okay, so that was one swatch from the archives. Another one is this beautiful teal swatch. Again, my favorite. Okay, this is crochet, and it is not a granny square. These stitches are tiny, or much smaller than double crochet stitches. And anyway, so it's one of my favorite stitch patterns to use. I don't have a name for it. I kind of made it up. And this yarn is, let me just find the information here for you. It is 85% cotton, Pima cotton, which is super soft, and 15% alpaca. And that's why, look at the drape. People say that crochet is like cardboard. Well, this is not cardboard, my friends. And the cotton gives it a nice sturdiness to it. And the yarn itself doesn't have much stretch. So that's one of the reasons why I was swatching and used this stitch pattern, because it is stretchy both diagonally and horizontally and vertically. So I wanted to have something that had drape and some elasticity kind of built into the pattern, because the yarn itself, as cotton and alpaca tend to do, would just stretch and stay and hang. So the design. So this yarn is Classic Elite Cerro, Cerro, which means mountain peak, or actually mountain range, I think. So, so here is the sweater that I ended up designing and crocheting. And there's a close-up of the detail. And here's the model wearing it with a belt. Anyway, this design is also available from Classic Elite. I think it's a download as well as getting it in the book. Anyway, so if you're interested in a fun crochet pattern, that is my swatch from the archive. This is one of my favorite yarns. Love it. Okay. This is, I'm going to call it my Frappuccino lace. No, my unicorn Frappuccino lace. Just because of the colors. Like, doesn't that look like unicorn colors to you? Maybe Disney princess. Anyway, so this was experimenting with the sea foam stitch, which is, you know, different lengths of double wrapped and dropped stitches. I don't know which side looks better. Maybe that side looks better. You can kind of see the waves a lot nicer. So this was just an experiment in the past. I just grabbed colors that I had lying around and made it. I haven't made anything out of it yet. What do you think I should make out of this stitch? What would you knit out of this? Maybe not those colors. Maybe you love the colors. I don't know. I'm not generally into Disney princess colors or unicorn frappuccinos. All right, so those were a couple of my crochet. Oh no, that last one was a knit swatch too. So, and here, well, this is a finished item. It isn't actually a finished item. It's a swatch, but I only have one of them. That's why I don't have it's a lone fingerless glove in 2 colors with a little diamond motif. So I'm considering this a swatch because I don't have its partner, and I don't even think I have this yarn anymore to make a partner, but I made this for a teaching class on how to knit intarsia in the round. So no back and forth here, no seam. Yes, there's some, well, that's a little blip mistake there. So yeah, I taught how to knit intarsia in the round at Creative Festival, which is a craft conference in Toronto. So I've taught that class twice there. So that's a swatch that I made for that class. And the last swatch from the archives is this little crocheted lace panel. I don't know if you can see the glitter. Does it shine in the light? Anyway, I took 2 strands of number 10 crochet cotton that was variegated, and 1 strand of a glittery thread, and held all 3 together and crocheted this filet crochet swatch. I don't know if I think it might make a nice summer top. So I don't have enough of the thread or the glitter to make the top though, so I think that's why I've kind of set the swatch aside until I can get my hands on some really nice colored crochet cotton. If you've ever heard of Handy Hands tatting thread, they make awesome mercerized cotton thread, and they have hundreds of colors and variegated colors as well. And even though they call themselves for tatting, I'll put the link in the show notes. They also make size 10 and size 5 crochet cotton. So size 5 is basically already a fingering weight for knitting, or yeah, fingering weight. It's definitely thicker than lace weight. So it's like a number 2. Anyway, if you like knitting with cotton, fine stuff, it would really make a nice top, summer top. And for crochet, well, I'm going to figure out how to work that up into a pattern. The danger of being a swatch collector is I always realize, oh, I'd never designed that. Oh, I should have designed that. And I do have startitis, always swatching, always starting new things. But fortunately, As you could see, some things actually end up going all the way to the finished object and to even being published. Speaking of which, that leads me to Pam's finished objects. So, one of the finished objects, I don't think I showed you this last episode. If I did, sorry for the redundancy. This scarf was knit by Pam, designed by yours truly, and it's with Noro, and it appears in the Noro's Accessories number 2 book. So it's a really fun pattern. I think that's the best close-up that you can see with the tuck stitches. I even think I might have showed you guys the swatch for this or before, I'm not sure. Anyway, so that's a finished object of Pam's that has made it all the way. And another one, oh, I'm not going to interrupt again to run downstairs and get it, but she finished a scarf. So I'll have to save that for the next episode. Okay, from the archives. Oh, no. This is not the scarf that I was thinking of, but Pam did finish something else for our son. I don't know if you've seen the famous painting, Ce n'est pas une pipe. But look at this intarsia work. This is my wife's first efforts at intarsia. Ta-da! Didn't she do great on that pipe? So this is a huge, long sweater for my very tall son, Zachary, and he requested the pipe. So it was fun to use some charting software and make this for him. Obviously that pattern can't be for sale because that artwork is licensed, but for my own personal use, it was fine. And if you are a copyright lawyer and I've broken the law, please let me know. I think I'm good though. All right. So now to the archives. I found this beret. Now, I don't know if I could pull it off. What do you think? It has the nice little French tie right there. Now, this beret has a lot of history. I knit it for my mom, who passed away a year ago. Just a few days ago, it was a year. And but going through her things, I found this beret that I had knit, and she kept it all these years. So this beret is made out of, I don't know if you can see the fuzz on it. And can you see the nice mocha color that it has? Anyway, this beret is made out of 100% Angora. And not only is it my own design, but another reason why it's so special is I raised these Angoras. This is Rabbit from some of my pet Angoras, who I took care of very carefully, and I did not harm them the way that you can see Angora being collected and harvested so nastily. I combed these rabbits every third day, and then during their shedding season, then when I would comb or brush, their skin would just kind of just release, the follicles kind of just open and release, and like shedding, and then it would end up in the brush and the comb. So the rabbits were very calm. I know when a rabbit was upset or in pain, because they would either bite or pee on you or shake and tremble. So if the rabbit stretched out and kind of, put its paws forward and its hind legs back while it was being brushed, you knew that it really wasn't suffering. So I made sure that I knew how to humanely harvest the Angora fur. And they lived till 5 years old, and they were well fed and well taken care of. So I don't think they were harmed. Now, any vegans in the audience, I know you'll hate me that I did that, but can't apologize for something that happened 20 something years ago. Well, I can apologize for it, but can't undo it. Anyway, I still love Angora. And so I harvested the Angora fur and then I spun it as well. I had just learned how to spin maybe a few months before. And so it's 3 plies of Angora handspun, and then I Z twisted the 3 plies onto themselves or together and came up with this beautiful DK weight Angora yarn. Wow, it's warm. So anyway, what do you think? Can I pull it off? Maybe if it was black. I don't actually mind the oatmeal or mocha color. It's not that bad. So anyway, okay, so that is one of my projects from the archives. So, knitting and crochet classes. What's been going on? How many of you have taken a knitting class recently, and what was it about? Was it just basic stitches or some technique or something cool? Or was it a project-based class? And where did you take it? Do you take your classes at your local yarn stores, online, or at a bigger big box craft store, or with a friend, community college, community center? Just where have you taken and what kind of class have you taken? So please go to the thread for this episode in the Ravelry group and just share what classes you've taken either recently or in the past. Same for you crocheters. What classes have you taken recently or in the past? Technique, project, video class. Anyway, on to the classes that I'm going to be teaching soon. Actually finished teaching a couple weekends ago. Went to Linda's Craftique in Port Credit, Ontario, and I taught how to use Tunisian to make Tunisian in the round and then to make the corners around it. And then the afternoon class was how to sew granny squares together. This happens to be the whip stitch, but we also learned how to crochet them together, how to use the invisible locking mattress stitch. And my camera is saying that it's full. Just 1 minute. Okay, sorry for that interruption. A little bit of drama here in the family, nothing serious. One of those times when you lose something and you just can't remember where it is, and no matter how many times you play back your steps, you still can't find it. So anyway, I'm going to finish recording this episode and then I'll go help them find the missing thing. Okay, so the next class that I'm teaching is two-hand ferrule knitting. So basically basically you have to learn, if you're a right-handed knitter, you have to learn, or a picker, then you have to learn continental. And if you are a continental knitter, you have to learn a little bit of right-handed stuff so that you can have one color in one hand and one color the other and feed one color each way. And that way it comes out with really even tension, and the loops in the back are easier to catch every 3 or 5 or 7, whichever you prefer to do. Anyway, so that is a class I'm teaching. And then I'm going to be teaching the orange blossom crochet stitch. And I don't have the really nice cowl that I've shown you in previous episodes. Oh, a little bit of a sun streak here. So this is a hat. Excuse the color, unless you love this color, but I was given this yarn, so I didn't have much choice over the color. Anyway, so this is an adult size hat, and this is a kid size hat, Mommy and me. So, and then here the brim is made out of that orange blossom stitch because it's really cushy, thick, and warm for the ears. Anyway, I had a group of people testing it, but they all bailed on me. Nobody followed through with the test. I'm sure their lives were too busy. And if any of you are watching, don't feel bad. That's what happens. But anyway, I kind of ended the test, and I think I'm just going to have to write the pattern and pay for a technical editor, unless any of you watchers would be interested in testing it. But it's a little bit complicated because I need you to learn the orange blossom stitch first, then I need you to learn this stitch pattern. Even though the adult hat has another stitch pattern, I'm going to can this. I don't like it, and replace it with this one because it's much nicer. In fact, it's the same one as this swatch. Okay, so just let me know if you're interested. Okay, so on to the growth mindset. So I get a newsletter from Curio, or the Daily Curio, which is from from curious.com. Anyway, so this week I read about the myth that successful people have things really come easy for them. And actually, that's just a myth. The reality is that successful people have put in a lot of effort and hard work, and a lot of grit, basically. And so successful people have worked hard for the most, I'm not even saying for the most part. I'm gonna, if you've inherited, several $1 million and you've had a cushy life, yeah, I guess people might say you're successful, but that's just a monetary measure. I would want to see if that person was successful at something else, successful at helping their family, successful at some charitable project. If they don't want to give their money away, then successful at investing it or building a business empire or whatever. So just by inheriting money doesn't necessarily make you successful, in my humble opinion. So success to me isn't money. It's doing something that you love, doing something well, and helping the world, basically, and leaving some kind of legacy behind. So anyway, reality is that it takes a mammoth of effort to be successful. So a little tip: if the path to something that you really want is full of barriers, or at least it requires a lot of sweat and tears and effort, then that probably means that you're breaking through another fixed mindset, and that you've had a bad habit about this whole myth of other people being successful with no effort. And because you are struggling for something you really like and you're really having to put in a lot of effort, you're leaving that mindset behind and you're adopting a growth mindset where effort is valued and important. So what I've learned this week is that I still sometimes subscribe to the myth that successful people have things come easily to them, and in this case, comparing myself to other podcasters. There are several of you podcasters out there that, wow, it just seems you have audiences like that. You retain audiences. I don't know, just things seem to grow overnight. Maybe it's the timing because you came in early in the game, but I'm noticing that some people that came in early in the game aren't around anymore, so that's not necessarily it. Sometimes I think, wow, they're extroverts. It just comes easily to them. It's not an effort. They're so bubbly, or they have a lot of charisma, so that's why they gain followers. And here I am, an introvert, and a little bit more underspoken, a little bit more sedate, and it's just not going to happen unless I put on airs, and that's hard for me to do. I'd say that if you compare this episode to an episode, to the last two, or the first two, this is definitely not put on airs, but I'm a little bit more relaxed finally, I think, behind the camera. And now my audio card is full. I don't know how long that's been the case. So who knows whether this camera is even picking up anything. Okay, just a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, this is hard work, especially when the equipment keeps on failing. Anyway, not really. It doesn't keep on failing. So, anyway, yeah, so sometimes a little bit jealous of these podcasters that, you know, it's so easily. And I know one of the biggest things is consistency and posting frequently enough. I was going okay once a week, and then day job and deadlines for my tech editing kind of got in the way, and I couldn't record. I was working 12, 14-hour days solid with marking students' assignments and final exams, and not complaining, but I do need to do the support the family thing first before I get to do the hobby. So it's I don't want the podcast to just be a hobby. I'd like to kind of pursue this, not full time, obviously, but it's something that I seriously am committed to doing. So I'm learning that I have to really push through, and if I want this podcast to be up on the shelf of some showcase of podcasts, I'm gonna have to really work hard. If you picture those, if you've watched Netscape or used the Netscape environment, you know how they scroll the shows back and forth. I'd really like my podcast logo to kind of be not on Netflix, obviously, but wherever an inventory of podcasts is, I'd like it to kind of show up as recommended for you, or new arrivals, or because you watched so and so, watch this one. I wouldn't mind being either of the because you watched Swatch on, Swatch off, blah blah blah, or because you watched something awesome, also try Swatch on, Swatch off podcast. So we'll see. Get there eventually, hopefully. I've never been one of the cool kids, never in high school, never as a designer, and not as a podcaster. And I'm okay with not being a cool kid. I'm not really worried about keeping up with the Joneses, but I'd like to reach a really wide audience because my core being is I'm a teacher, and my core calling or vocation is to help others learn. And I mean, yes, I help others learn English as a second language. I have also taught Spanish. I'm passionate about that. But, I'm very passionate about knitting and crochet. So I love to teach, and I want to reach and, help people move along from point A to point B in their knitting and crochet skills, so that they're happy with their finished projects. They move beyond the project that they keep repeating over and over again, or the abandoned projects. Their projects, I don't expect things to look factory made. None of my stuff looks factory made, but learning how to finish projects so that they look, impeccable is important too. So all of this stuff basically is stuff that I'd like to do throughout the medium of the podcast. So anyway, that's my goals. And indirectly, hopefully, if any of you are entrepreneurs and try to sell your finished items, I'd also like to, help you along that route. Not that I'm an amazing entrepreneur or salesperson, but I mean as far as making a quality product. Okay, so what have I learned this week? Basically that I'm going to have to work really hard at this, and I really embrace the challenge. So what do you want to achieve in knitting or crochet, or both, this week? Something that you identify that seems really easy to others. And somebody's coming in again. And he might have found the lost item. if he comes back during the podcast, there'll be a news flash. He found it. But anyway, maybe not. I'll let you know in the show notes probably. So, lost my spot. Okay, yes. What do you want to learn? And if you are finding things that you think everybody else can do really easily and you can't, maybe it's time for you to drop that myth and realize that they probably put in a lot of effort to get there, and you're going to have to too. And the good thing is, I'll be here to support you as much as I can, and I'm sure eventually the group of swatchers from the Swatch on Swatch Off podcast will also be here to provide a listening ear, let you rant, or give you some tips, help you out. So, are you going to summon up your energy and positivity and tackle it with effort? That's my challenge for you for this episode. Okay, community. It's all about the hashtag this episode. While I've been away, I've been working on things in social media to make this kind of a smoother connection, because I'm a little bit all over the map in social media. So it's all about the hashtag this episode. I'm going to go a little bit old school here. And I just realized that this whole thing might be backwards. And old school might not work. So if this hashtag, so S01e04 Swatch, which stands for Swatch on, Swatch off, Swatch, obviously, with a little hashtag in the front there. If this is backwards on your screen, I will definitely put a little digital version of it somewhere right here. So here's my new logo. And on Instagram, you can tag me at Swatch on, Swatch off. Twitter, they wouldn't let me have such a long handle. So I'm going to put my new Twitter handle in the show notes so that you can follow me on Twitter as well. And basically trying to do everything Swatch on, Swatch off friendly and connected. So now some of you are going to say, so Swatch. Well, so means mediocre. Well, we can think of it in a negative light like that, or you can, think a little bit more positively. So like something only swatchers own, so you own it. Something only swatchers own are their swatches, which help them make awesome things because they have the right number of stitches and rows per 10 centimeters or 4 inches. Okay, so the other challenge this episode is to come join me on Instagram and follow me there. Take a picture of one of your swatches. It can be a swatch from the archives. It can be a swatch that you're currently working on. And it can be something that you swatch specifically for this challenge. That'd be kind of cool. So anyway, go onto the Instagram, tag me, hashtag it with this. And that way I'll be able to find a link and everybody can go look at all the pooled or collected together swatches that are part of this challenge. You can even use hashtags on Facebook. If your posts are public or in a public group, they'll show up. If they're in a closed group, other members in the group who know the hashtag will be able to find it there. But anyway, Facebook's a little bit more buried in. The other thing is to go to the Swatch on Swatch Off community on Ravelry and post your photos there. Posting photos on Ravelry, I haven't done it for a while. Well, I pay every year so that I can just upload photos. But if you need to do it free, that means you need to have a free account. I think Flickr, I don't know if it links to Google Picture links or Dropbox links. Anyway, so there are lots of good Ravelry tutorials for helping you figure out how to use Ravelry. So I'm not going to teach you that stuff. Anyway, so if you want to post your pictures on Ravelry, that's great too. Okay, so it's time for the cheesy ending. See, I'm trying to be all extroverted. It's just not me. Okay, so thanks for swatching on with me during this episode. Now go swatch something and fasten it off, or cast off, or bind off those stitches, and then show off your swatch. Thanks, friends. Cheers.